My wife got a court order for our safe deposit box. Sure, I'd hidden my inheritance there. It's all mine, she gloated. I just handed her the key. When she opened it, her own lawyer's hand started to tremble. He slammed it shut and hissed, "Don't touch anything." I'm writing this from my home office at 2 a.m. because sleep is impossible right now. My hands are still shaking from what happened at the bank yesterday, and I need to get this all out before I lose my mind. Let me back up and start from the beginning because this story doesn't make sense without understanding how we got here. 2 years ago, my father died quietly in his sleep at 73. No drama, no hospital goodbyes, just the way he would have wanted it. The funeral was small, maybe 20 people total. Dad wasn't the type to collect friends like trading cards. He preferred a tight circle of people he actually respected. I wrote the eulogy myself, kept it simple and honest, talked about how he taught me to value substance over flash, how he built his wealth slowly and carefully, like someone stacking stones into a wall that would last forever. I didn't cry during the service, not because I didn't care, but because I'd learned from him that grief is private, not a performance. My wife Cassandra sat beside me in the front row, wearing a black dress she'd bought specifically for the occasion. At the time, I thought it was thoughtful. Looking back now, I wonder if she was already calculating. The thing about my father's wealth was that it never looked like wealth. He drove a 15-year-old Honda, lived in the same modest house for 40 years, wore shirts until the collars frayed. But underneath that boring exterior was a financial empire built on real estate trusts, offshore holdings, and investments with names like Citron Holdings and Alton Group AG. He never explained the details, just left me a spreadsheet with one locked cell and a handwritten note. Only unlock if they come for you. I didn't touch it, not yet. Didn't even think about it much in those first few weeks. I was too busy sorting through his belongings, answering condolence calls, and trying to figure out what normal looked like without him. Cassandra seemed fine with it all. She didn't ask questions about the estate, didn't suddenly start being extra affectionate or weird, just went about her life. Yoga classes, brunch with friends, scrolling through her phone for hours while I handled the paperwork. Then came the wake. We held it at a restaurant downtown. Nothing fancy, just finger foods and an open bar. Most people had left by the time Cassandra's cousin Dylan showed up. He was already 3 whiskeys deep, stumbling through the door with that glassy-eyed look people get when they're past tipsy but not quite drunk enough to be escorted out. He found me near the dessert table, grabbed my shoulder hard enough to make me wince, and leaned in close. His breath smelled like bourbon and cigarettes. "Your old man was loaded, huh?" he slurred, grinning like we were sharing a secret. "Cassie told me. He had accounts in Switzerland. Maybe the Caymans too. Smart guy. Real smart." I pulled away, trying to keep my voice neutral. "I don't know what you're talking about, Dylan." "Come on, man." He laughed loud enough that a few people turned to look. "Don't play dumb. Everyone knows. That Indonesia fund, the offshore stuff. My uncle worked with your dad back in the day. Said he was a genius at hiding money from the tax man. I should have shut him down harder. Should have walked away. But I was tired and grieving and didn't have the energy to manage a drunk idiot at my father's wake. You should probably get some water," I said instead, steering him toward the bar. But the damage was done. Cassandra had been standing 10 feet away, pretending to look at her phone, but I could tell she'd heard every word. Her eyes had that sharp, focused look she got when she spotted a sale at Nordstrom. That night, driving home, she was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that feels like a person holding their breath underwater. "Dylan was drunk," I said, trying to get ahead of it. Half of what he said was probably made up. She murmured, staring out the window. "My dad kept his finances boring on purpose. Everything's in trust. It'll take months to sort through." "Sure." I let it drop. Big mistake. The first sign came 3 days later. I came home from work early, left at 4 p.m. instead of 6 p.m. because I had a splitting headache, and found Cassandra in my home office. She wasn't even trying to hide it. The filing cabinet was open, papers spread across my desk like she was doing some kind of forensic investigation. My laptop was on, unlocked, with several browser tabs open to estate planning websites. "What are you doing?" I asked from the doorway. She jumped. Actually jumped and spun around with this guilty look that immediately tried to morph into indignation. "I was looking for the warranty information for the dishwasher," she said too quickly. "In my office? I thought you might have filed it with the house stuff." I walked over and looked at the papers she'd pulled out. Tax returns from 3 years ago, bank statements, a copy of my father's will. Nothing related to appliances. "Cassandra." "What?" Her voice had an edge now, defensive. "I'm your wife. I should know what's going on with our finances." "Our finances are fine. My father's estate is being handled by lawyers. There's nothing to worry about." "Then why are you being so secretive?" "I'm not being secretive. I'm being private. There's a difference." She crossed her arms, jaw tight. "You don't trust me." "That's not what this is about." "Then what is it about? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're hiding something." I took a breath, counted to 5 in my head. "Everything's in trust. Structured payouts, tax implications. It's complicated and it's being handled. When there's something concrete to discuss, we'll discuss it." She stared at me for a long moment, then gathered up the papers and shoved them back into the filing cabinet, making sure I heard every aggressive movement. "Fine," she said, brushing past me. "Keep your secrets." That was round 1. Over the next 2 months, Cassandra's interest in my father's estate went from curious to obsessive. It started small, casual questions over breakfast. "How much do you think your dad left you? Will it come as a lump sum or payments? Did he have life insurance?" I answered vaguely, mostly because I genuinely didn't have solid numbers numbers yet. The lawyers were still cataloging assets, tracking down account numbers, and navigating the maze of corporate entities my father had set up over 40 years. But Cassandra wasn't satisfied with vague. She wanted specifics. I started noticing things out of place. My stapler moved from the left side of my desk to the right. Papers in my briefcase shuffled in a different order than I'd left them. The chair in my office at a different angle. At first, I thought I was being paranoid. Grief does weird things to your brain. Makes you notice patterns that aren't there. But then I caught her. I'd come home late from a client dinner, around 10 p.m. The house was dark except for a light under my office door. I pushed it open quietly and found Cassandra sitting at my desk, her own laptop open next to mine, both screens glowing blue in the darkness. She was reading through my cloud backup files. "What the hell are you doing?" I asked, my voice sharper than I'd intended. She slammed her laptop shut but didn't even have the grace to look embarrassed. "I'm trying to understand what's going on. You won't tell me anything." "Because there's nothing to tell yet. The estate is in probate. Everything's frozen until the lawyers sort it out." "Bullshit." She stood up, facing me across the desk. "I found documents about offshore accounts, properties in 3 different states I've never heard you mention, corporate entities with your dad's name attached. This isn't nothing. How did you get into my cloud account?" "Does it matter?" "Yes, it matters. That's my private information. You can't just—" "We're married," she shouted, loud enough that I worried the neighbors might hear. "Your private information is our information. Or are you planning to keep it all for yourself?" I stood there stunned, not by her anger, I'd seen her angry before, but by the accusation, like I was some villain hoarding treasure while she starved outside the castle walls. "I'm not keeping anything from you," I said slowly, "but I'm also not discussing my father's estate with you until I have actual information to share, and I'm definitely not okay with you hacking into my accounts." "I didn't hack anything. You used the same password for everything." That wasn't true, but I didn't argue. Instead, I changed all my passwords that night after she went to bed, made them complex, random, stored them in an encrypted manager Sheikh high-trusted wouldn't be able to crack without a court order. I thought that would be the end of it. I was so incredibly wrong. 3 weeks later, I came home to find Cassandra sitting on the couch with her laptop, headphones in, replaying something over and over. Her expression was intense, focused, like she'd just discovered the secret to cold fusion. "What are you watching?" I asked, setting down my briefcase. She pulled out one earbud. "Nothing, just a video." "Looks pretty interesting for nothing." She closed the laptop. "Do you know someone named Richard Pemberton?" The name sounded vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place it. "Maybe?" "Why?" "He called the house line yesterday, left a voicemail. Said he was a trust officer from Bermuda and needed to discuss account maintenance with you." My stomach dropped. The house line. We barely used it anymore. It was basically just for spam calls and the occasional elderly relative. I'd forgotten to check the messages in weeks. "Let me hear it," I said. She pulled up the voicemail on her phone, hit play. A professional male voice, slightly British accent. "Hello, this is Richard Pemberton calling from Consolidated Trust Services in Bermuda. I'm trying to reach Daniel regarding the Alton Group maintenance schedule for Q3. Please return my call at your earliest convenience." He left a number. Cassandra had already written it down. "Bermuda," she said, eyes locked on mine. "That's offshore, right? Tax shelter territory?" "It's also just a place where people do business." "What's the Alton Group?" "One of my father's holding companies." "How many does he have?" "I don't know exactly." "Ballpark." "Cassandra, how many?" "7, maybe 8. They're just corporate structures for managing assets. It's not some conspiracy." She leaned back, arms crossed. "And you weren't going to tell me about any of this?" "I was going to tell you when there was something to tell. Right now, it's just paperwork and maintenance fees." "Maintenance fees for what? How much money are we talking about?" "I don't know." "Guess?" "No? Why not?" "Because I don't want to speculate, and I don't appreciate being interrogated in my own home." She stood up, grabbed her laptop. "You know what I think? I think you know exactly how much is there, and you're planning to keep it all to yourself. That's insane." "Is it? Because from where I'm standing, you've been lying to me for months." "I haven't lied about anything. I just haven't given you a detailed financial breakdown of an estate that I'm still figuring out myself." "Same thing," she said, and walked upstairs. That night, she slept in the guest room. First time in 7 years of marriage. A week later, my computer started acting weird. Nothing major, just small hiccups. Programs taking longer to open. The fan running hot even when I wasn't doing anything intensive. I ran a diagnostic and found it. A keylogger program buried in my startup files, disguised as a tax document. Tax done a 2022 PDF.exe. The subtlety was almost insulting. I sat there staring at the file name for a good 5 minutes, trying to decide how to handle it. Part of me wanted to confront her immediately, but another part, the part that was starting to see the bigger picture, wanted to wait and see what else she'd try. I deleted the program, then installed monitoring software of my own. Not to spy exactly, more to document, because I had a feeling I was going to need documentation. That evening, I found her in the kitchen making dinner. She was humming something off-key, chopping vegetables with aggressive precision. "Found something interesting on my computer today," I said, leaning against the counter. "Yeah?" She didn't look up. "A keylogger, hidden in my system files. Any idea how it got there?" The knife stopped moving. She set it down slowly, wiped her hands on a towel, and finally looked at me. "You're seriously accusing me of spying on you?" "I'm not accusing. I'm stating a fact. There was spyware on my computer, and you're the only other person who has access to it. Maybe you got a virus. Viruses don't name themselves Tax 2022 PDF. That's human level stupid. Her face flushed red. So now I'm stupid? I didn't say that, but I am saying that you installed spyware on my computer, and I want to know why. Because you won't tell me anything. She was shouting now, all pretense of calm gone. You're hiding things from me, important things that affect both of us. So yeah, I looked, because you left me no choice. I left you no choice? Cassandra, we're married, not business partners. I don't owe you a real-time update on every financial transaction I make. This isn't about transactions. This is about trust. And you clearly don't trust me. I trusted you until you started going through my files, hacking my accounts, and installing spyware. You destroyed the trust, not me. She grabbed her car keys from the counter. I'm going to my sister's. Fine. She left. Didn't come back until after midnight. When she finally crawled into bed, our bed this time, she didn't say a word. Just lay there in the dark, breathing too carefully, like she was pretending to sleep. I stared at the ceiling and wondered when exactly my marriage had turned into a cold war. 2 months passed in a tense stalemate. We were polite to each other in that awful, formal way people are when they're trying not to fight in public. But underneath the politeness was something toxic and growing. She'd stopped asking questions about the estate, stopped snooping through my office. At first, I thought maybe she'd finally let it go, accepted that the information would come when it came. I was wrong. She'd just shifted tactics. One morning in early spring, I came downstairs to find a yellow post-it note stuck to the fridge. The handwriting was hers, casual and looping. Filing next week. Hope you've got a good lawyer. I stared at that note for probably 5 full minutes, coffee growing cold in my hand, trying to process what it meant. Filing. Divorce. She was divorcing me, and the hope you've got a good lawyer part wasn't concerned for my well-being. It was a threat, a promise that she was coming for me hard. I peeled the note off the fridge, folded it carefully, and put it in my wallet. Then I called my lawyer. His name was Douglas Hammond, a partner at a mid-sized firm downtown who'd helped my father with estate planning years ago. He was in his 60s, gray-haired, and sharp-eyed, with the kind of calm competence that makes you feel better just sitting in his office. She left a note on the fridge, I told him, sliding the post-it across his desk. He read it, face expressionless, subtle. That's one word for it. Have you been served yet? Not yet. The note says next week. Then we have time to prepare. Walk me through everything. The estate, your assets, what she knows versus what she thinks she knows. I spent the next hour laying it all out. The offshore accounts, the real estate trusts, the corporate entities with boring names that held not so boring assets. My father's spreadsheet with the locked cell. The voicemail from Bermuda. Cassandra's increasingly desperate attempts to access information. Douglas listened without interrupting, taking notes in his precise handwriting. Do you have a prenup? He asked when I finished. Yes. Signed 3 years ago. What does it say? Standard stuff, I thought. Division of assets, spousal support guidelines, that kind of thing. You thought? I mean, I read it at the time, but it was 30 pages of legal jargon. He pulled up a digital copy on his computer. Apparently my father had sent him a copy when we signed it, and started scanning through the pages. Then he stopped, sat back, and smiled. What? I asked. Do you remember Clause 14b? No? Should I? Oh, you definitely should. He turned the screen toward me. Read this. I leaned forward and read Clause 14b. In the event that either party is found to have engaged in intentional fraud, conspiracy to defraud, or coercion through legal manipulation against the other party, all marital assets shall revert to the non-offending party, effective immediately upon substantiation of said violation. This clause supersedes all previous asset division agreements, outlined in sections 2A. I read it twice, 3 times. What does that mean in regular English? I asked. It means if she tries to screw you over using the legal system, and we can prove it, she gets nothing. Not half. Nothing. That seems harsh. That seems brilliant. Your father wrote this prenup, didn't he? He helped draft it. Yeah, the man was a genius. Douglas leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to let her file. Let her make her claims about hidden assets. Let her demand access to everything. And then we're going to document every single attempt she makes to manipulate the system in her favor. You want me to just let her come after me? I want you to give her enough rope to hang herself. Legally speaking, it felt dangerous, like standing in front of an oncoming train and trusting that someone had built invisible tracks that would divert it at the last second. But I also trusted Douglas, and more importantly, I trusted my father's paranoid genius. Okay, I said, let's do it. The divorce papers arrived via courier on a Tuesday morning, thick manila envelope. Official stamps, my name typed in bold letters. I opened it standing in the driveway, still in my pajamas, reading through the pages while the courier waited awkwardly for my signature. The filing was aggressive. She wasn't asking for half, she was demanding 3/4, claiming that I'd been hiding marital assets, that her contributions to our household had been undervalued, that emotional distress entitled her to additional compensation. The list of demanded items was almost comical. The house, both cars, the lake cabin my father had left me, 75% of all investment accounts, spousal support of $8,000 per month for 5 years, and, here was the kicker, full access to all safe deposit boxes, vaults, or storage containers I might have, with legal authority to search them with or without my cooperation. She'd done her homework, knew about the boxes, probably figured that's where I was hiding the real treasure. In a way, she was right. I signed for the papers, went inside, and called Douglas. She's going for the throat. I told him, good, let her. How do you want to respond? What are my options? We can fight every claim, drag this out for months, cost both of you a fortune in legal fees. Or we can play it smart. Define smart. Give her what she wants, not the assets. Give her access. Let her think she's winning, and while she's busy celebrating, we build our case. You really think this will work? I think your father thought it would work, and he was usually right. Usually? He married someone loyal. You didn't. That's not your fault, but it does mean we have to be more careful. That stung, but he wasn't wrong. So what's the next step? I asked. We respond to the filing with minimal resistance. We don't object to the vault access. In fact, we volunteer it, make her think we're cooperating because we don't have anything to hide, but we do have something in there. Exactly, and that's the beauty of it. 3 weeks before the hearing, I went to the bank alone. It was a Tuesday afternoon, gray and drizzly, the kind of weather that makes everything feel slightly ominous. I carried a leather briefcase that had belonged to my father, worn smooth at the corners from years of use. Inside the vault, I opened box 917. It was larger than most people would expect. Not a small drawer, but a decent-sized container, big, enough to hold file folders and documents without folding them. I'd been preparing this for months. Ever since Cassandra started her investigation, I'd been building my own. The first layer was documentation, bank statements showing wire transfers to accounts I'd never told her about, receipts for purchases made in her sister's name, purchases Cassandra had authorized and funded, screenshots of text message conversations I'd recovered from our phone bill, including several between her and her cousin Dylan discussing strategies for getting access to my father's estate. The second layer was surveillance. Nothing illegal. I'd hired a private investigator 6 months ago, a quiet professional named Angela Chen who specialized in domestic cases. She documented Cassandra's movements, her meetings, her secret trips to banks I didn't know we had accounts at. One folder contained photos of Cassandra entering a bank branch across town, going into the vault section, and emerging 30 minutes later with a small black bag. Angela had managed to get footage of her signing into the vault log under a different last name, her maiden name. Another folder held transcripts. Angela had used a parabolic microphone to record a conversation between Cassandra and her cousin in a parked car outside a Starbucks. The audio quality was incredible. You could hear every word. Cassandra, if I keep him thinking I'm broke, I can push the inheritance angle. He's slow but careful. I'll get it eventually. Dylan, is that legal? Cassandra, laughing, not at all, but he won't know until it's too late. I'd listened to that recording maybe 50 times, each time feeling a different emotion. Anger, betrayal, eventually just a cold, clinical detachment. The third layer was the prenup itself, a certified copy with her signature, her initials next to clause 14b, and, I noticed this for the first time examining it closely, a tiny hand-drawn heart next to her signature. She'd thought it was cute, a romantic gesture on a boring legal document. That heart was going to cost her everything. The fourth and final layer was something more personal, a folder labeled simply personal in my handwriting. Inside was a photo from our wedding day. She was laughing, head thrown back, genuinely happy. One of the few photos where neither of us was performing for the camera. Beneath that was the prenup signature page again, with her little heart, and at the very bottom, a single handwritten note on cream-colored stationery. You wanted what was mine. I only protected what was never yours. I'd written it the night she left the post-it note on the fridge. Wrote it in blue ink, no signature, no date, just a simple statement of fact. I placed everything in the box carefully, arranged like a dossier for a legal case, because that's exactly what it was. Then I added one more item, a black envelope, thick paper sealed with red wax. Stamped across the front was a name, Theodore Callister. I'd hired Callister 3 months ago. He was a retired federal prosecutor who'd spent 20 years in the organized crime division before transitioning into private consultation on corporate ethics and financial fraud cases. His retainer was expensive, $15,000 up front, $500 per hour after that, but worth every penny. The envelope contained his preliminary report, 50 pages of forensic accounting, pattern analysis, legal exposure assessment, and recommendations for legal action. Every transaction Cassandra had hidden, every account she'd opened in someone else's name, every business expense that was actually cash to her family members. Callister had found things even I hadn't known to look for. Loan applications filed in her sister's name using my tax ID, credit cards opened with my information, investment accounts that shouldn't exist. The report concluded with a recommendation. Delay response until breach of asset declaration is initiated. Allow court-sanctioned access to vault. Advise release of sealed evidence only upon procedural overreach. In other words, let her hang herself. I closed the box, locked it, and left the bank. Everything was ready. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. No gallery, no dramatic architecture, just a plain room with beige walls, fluorescent lights, and a judge who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Cassandra sat on the opposite side with her lawyer, a man named Richard Preston, who'd apparently made his career on contentious divorce cases. He was in his 40s, expensive suit, slicked back hair, and a smile that belonged on a used car salesman. My lawyer Douglas sat next to me, calm and still, like a chess player who'd already seen the endgame. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Judge Martha Hendricks entered, took her seat, and gestured for everyone to sit. "This is the matter of Cassandra Winters versus Daniel Winters, petition for dissolution of marriage. Mr. Preston, you may begin." Preston stood, buttoning his jacket with theatrical flair. "Your Honor, we have reason to believe the respondent has failed to disclose material financial assets. Specifically, we believe there are storage containers, safe deposit boxes, and vault facilities that may contain unreported funds related to an inheritance in question." He paused for effect. "We are formally requesting a court order compelling full access to any such containers, with legal authority to search them with or without the respondent's cooperation." Judge Hendricks looked at Douglas. "Mr. Hammond?" Douglas didn't even stand, just looked up from his notes and said, "No objection, Your Honor." The courtroom went silent. Preston blinked, visibly thrown. "I'm sorry?" "No objection," Douglas repeated. "In fact, we're prepared to assist." Cassandra turned to Preston, whispering urgently. I couldn't hear what she said, but I could see her expression. Confusion mixed with triumph. She thought we'd just rolled over. Judge Hendricks frowned. "Mr. Hammond, you understand what's being requested?" "Completely, Your Honor. My client has nothing to hide and is happy to cooperate with discovery." "That's unusual." She looked at her notes. "Very well. I'll sign the order. Mr. Preston, coordinate with opposing counsel on logistics." "Thank you, Your Honor," Preston said, that smile returning in full force. As the judge signed the paperwork, I reached into my jacket and pulled out an envelope. Inside was a slip of paper with bank information, a vault number, and a small brass key attached to a red leather tab stamped with 9 Wasasan. I slid it across the table to Preston. He picked it up, examined it like I'd just handed him a winning lottery ticket. "This is the vault access?" "Everything you asked for," I said quietly. Cassandra leaned over to look. Her face lit up. She actually smiled at me, a triumphant, vindictive smile that said she'd finally won. Preston turned to me, unable to resist. "We'll be there Monday morning, 9 a.m. Just make sure you bring gloves," I said. He laughed, thought I was being dramatic. Douglas didn't laugh. He knew exactly what I meant. As we left the courtroom, Cassandra caught up to me in the hallway. She couldn't help herself. "I told you I'd find it," she hissed, low enough that her lawyer wouldn't hear. I looked at her, really looked at her, maybe for the first time in months, saw past the anger and the greed to something sadder underneath. Fear, maybe, or desperation. "You did," I said, "but finding it and surviving it, those are different games." She rolled her eyes, turned on her heel, and walked away, heels clicking on the marble floor like gunshots. I watched her go and realized I didn't feel angry anymore, just tired, and maybe a little sad for what we'd both lost along the way. I got to the bank at 8:45 a.m. Cassandra and Preston arrived at 8:58, precisely 2 minutes early, probably because Preston was the type who thought punctuality was a power move. The bank lobby was quiet, just a few early customers and the soft murmur of transactions. I sat in one of the waiting area chairs, reading a magazine someone had left behind, an article about quantum entanglement and unpredictable particle behavior. Poetic, really. Cassandra spotted me immediately and made a show of ignoring me. Walked straight to the counter, Preston trailing behind like an overdressed shadow. "We're here for vault access," Preston announced to the teller, sliding the court order across the counter. "Box 917. The teller, a young woman who couldn't have been more than 25, glanced at the paperwork, then at me. I gave her a small nod. "I'll need to call the vault manager," she said. "One moment, please." While they waited, Cassandra paced. She was wearing heels today. Black, designer, the kind that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Click, click, click across the marble floor. Preston kept checking his phone, probably texting his assistant about how easy this was going to be. The vault manager appeared, a middle-aged man named Richard Chen, who I'd worked with before. He reviewed the paperwork, glanced at me again, then nodded. "Follow me," he said. They disappeared through the security door. I stayed in the lobby, went back to my article about quantum particles and unpredictable outcomes. Perfect timing, really. I couldn't see what happened inside the vault, but I could hear echoes of it. The thick, metallic thunk of the box drawer sliding out. A moment of silence, then a voice. Preston's suddenly sharp. "Don't touch anything." More silence, then louder, more urgent. I said, "Do not touch anything." People in the lobby turned. A woman paused mid-transaction. The teller who'd helped them earlier looked up, concerned. Richard Chen emerged first, face pale, moving quickly to the bank manager's desk. He picked up the phone. Not 911, something internal, and spoke in low, urgent tones. Preston came out next, gripping his briefcase like it might protect him from whatever he'd just seen. His tie was crooked. Sweat had bloomed through his shirt in dark patches under his arms. That confidence he'd worn like armor was gone, replaced by something I'd been waiting to see. Fear. Real, genuine fear. Cassandra was last. She walked slowly, eyes unfocused, mumbling something I couldn't quite hear. As she passed my chair, I caught it. What the hell is this? She didn't look at me, didn't acknowledge I existed. I didn't answer, didn't need to. Preston pulled me aside, away from the tellers, his hand actually trembling as he grabbed my arm. "We need to talk," he hissed. "Now." I followed him to a quiet corner near the ATMs. "There are surveillance photos in that box," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "Documents. Time-stamped receipts, screenshots, hidden accounts under her sister's name. This isn't just about inheritance. This is... He stopped, looked around, lowered his voice even more. Where did you get that footage? Which footage? I asked calmly. There's a video file. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I saw enough. She's in a car, talking to someone, says, and I quote, I married him for the money. I'll leave once I know where it's all buried. Then she laughs. I didn't respond. Just waited. Why didn't you disclose this earlier? He demanded. I didn't withhold anything. She demanded access. The court granted it. I gave it. This is entrapment. No, I said quietly. This is documentation. His mouth opened and closed. He was calculating now, trying to figure out if there was any way to salvage this, finding nothing but darkness in every direction. These are forensic grade materials, he said finally. Multiple camera angles, dates match with GPS metadata, cell tower triangulation. Where did you get all this? She thought she was playing chess, I said. I built the board. Back in the lobby, Cassandra was pacing again, but the energy was different now. Not triumphant, frantic. Her arms crossed, then dropped. Her face cycled through expressions like someone trying on masks and finding none that fit. Preston returned to her, whispered urgently. I watched her face change as he spoke, watched the moment it clicked, the moment she realized what she'd opened wasn't a treasure chest, it was Pandora's box, and now she couldn't close it. She turned and looked at me. Our eyes met for the first time that morning. You're bluffing, she said, loud enough for the whole lobby to hear. You don't have anything. I didn't answer, because the truth was more powerful than any response I could give. She thought the something I had was the evidence. What she didn't understand was that she was the evidence. They went back into the vault. Preston insisted, probably thinking if he could examine everything carefully, he'd find some flaw, some legal technicality that would make it all inadmissible. He was gone for almost an hour this time. When he emerged again, he was carrying the black envelope, the one with the wax seal, the one with Theodore Callister's name stamped across it. Cassandra was behind him, and I could see her mouth moving as she read the name off the envelope. Who's Callister? She asked, her voice carrying across the lobby. Preston didn't answer. He was staring at his phone screen, having just Googled the name. Well? Cassandra demanded. He turned the screen toward her without a word. I couldn't see what she was reading, but I could see her face go pale. Why is a federal prosecutor involved in this? Her voice had lost its edge, replaced by something that sounded like genuine fear. Preston looked at me. Is this who I think it is? Former federal prosecutor, I corrected. Retired. Now does private consultation on corporate ethics and financial fraud. When did you retain him? 6 months ago. 6 months, Preston repeated slowly like he was doing math in his head. You've been planning this for 6 months. I've been protecting myself for 6 months. There's a difference. Cassandra grabbed the envelope from Preston's hands, broke the wax seal, stupid really, since breaking a seal on official documents can have legal implications, and pulled out the report. I watched her flip through pages, saw her stop on one, read it twice, look up at Preston with wide eyes. These are bank statements, she said. From accounts She didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. Preston took the report from her, scanned through it with professional speed. His face somehow got paler. Asset exposure and pattern misrepresentation, he read aloud, then flipped to a tab. January firm event. This has a seating chart, placing you next to... He stopped. Someone you said you barely knew. I do barely know him, Cassandra protested, but her voice was weak. There are hotel receipts here, same dates, as the firm event. Room registered under a different name, but payment traced to an account linked to your email. That's not possible. It's notarized. Preston kept flipping pages, wire transfers, vendor invoices, fake ones, girls' trips that coincide with cash movements. This is a forensic accounting report. This isn't surveillance. This is a federal case. He found the section labeled admissions and stopped breathing. What? Cassandra asked. What is it? He handed her the page without a word. I knew what it said. I'd memorized it weeks ago. Transcript of conversation, recorded March 15th, parking location, 2400 block of Maple Street, 3:47 p.m. Subject 1, verified as Cassandra Winters via voice analysis. If I keep him thinking I'm broke, I can push the inheritance angle. He's slow but careful. I'll get it eventually. Subject 2, verified as Dylan Travers via voice analysis. Is that legal? Subject 1, laughing. Not at all, but he won't know until it's too late. Cassandra read it once, twice, a third time, like maybe the words would change. That's doctored, she said. That's fake. You can't use that. It's notarized, I said from across the lobby, and there's audio and video and metadata and cell tower records confirming you were at that exact location at that exact time. Preston flipped to the last page of the report. His hands were shaking now. Action recommendation, he read aloud. Delay response until breach of asset declaration is initiated. Allow court-sanctioned access to vault. Advise release of sealed evidence only upon procedural overreach. He looked up at me. This whole thing was a setup. No, I said. This whole thing was an audit. She just failed it. The emergency hearing was scheduled for 3 days later. Preston had tried to file for a postponement, but Judge Hendricks denied it. You demanded expedited discovery, she said in her written response. You got it. We gathered in the same courtroom. Same players, different energy. Cassandra looked like she hadn't slept. Her makeup was perfect. Probably took her an hour to apply, but it couldn't hide the hollowness in her eyes. Preston sat beside her, noticeably less confident than before. Douglas had brought 3 banker's boxes full of documents, organized, tabbed, ready to present. Mr. Hammond, Judge Hendricks began, you've submitted extensive new evidence. Can you summarize for the court? Douglas stood. Your Honor, the vault access Mrs. Winters requested revealed substantial evidence of fraud, asset concealment, and false declarations. We've documented 23 separate instances of financial misconduct spanning 18 months. Objection, Preston said, standing. My client was not on trial here. This is a divorce proceeding, not a criminal investigation. Your objection is noted, the judge said, but you did request access to sealed evidence. Mr. Hammond, continue. More importantly, Your Honor, Mrs. Winters' actions trigger Clause 14b of the couple's prenuptial agreement. Preston's face went gray. That clause is buried in footnotes. It's not enforceable. It's page 12, section 14, paragraph B, Douglas said calmly. Hardly buried, and it's very much enforceable. He handed copies to the judge and to Preston. I watched Preston read it, watched his expression shift from defiance to resignation. Judge Hendricks read silently for a moment, then looked up. Mrs. Winters, did you sign this prenuptial agreement? Cassandra's lawyer whispered something to her. She nodded. Yes, she said quietly. Did you read it before signing? I glanced through it. Did anyone force you to sign it? No. Did you have the opportunity to have your own attorney review it before signing? Yes, but I didn't think yes or no, Mrs. Winters. Yes. The judge looked back at the document. Clause 14b states, in the event of intent to defraud, conspire, or coerce through legal manipulation, all marital assets revert to the non-offending party, effective upon substantiation of violation. She looked at Douglas. And you're arguing that Mrs. Winters' actions constitute fraud? We have evidence of 23 separate instances, Your Honor. Recorded conversations admitting intent, financial records showing deliberate concealment, false statements made under oath during initial discovery. Your Honor, this is excessive, Preston tried. These allegations are supported by forensic accounting, surveillance footage, bank records, and Mrs. Winters' own recorded admissions. Douglas interrupted. All documented, all authenticated, all admissible. The judge was silent for a long moment. I'm going to need time to review this evidence, she said finally, but preliminarily, if even half of what you're alleging is accurate, Clause 14b would indeed be triggered. Your Honor, Preston started. We'll reconvene in 1 week. Mrs. Winters, I strongly suggest you consult with your attorney about the potential consequences of this clause. The gavel came down. Cassandra just sat there, frozen, as people filed out around her. The story broke 3 days later. A legal blog I'd never heard of published an anonymous post titled When Prenups Strike Back, a cautionary tale. It didn't name names, but included enough details that anyone in our social circle could piece it together. A spouse attempting to claim half of a significant inheritance discovered that her own recorded admissions and hidden financial dealings triggered a prenuptial clause stripping her of all claims. The vault she demanded access to contained not hidden assets, but evidence of her own fraud. Comments poured in. Some supportive, some vicious, all speculating. Then someone on a local forum posted Cassandra's name, just her first name and a vague reference to that tech sector divorce with the vault, but it was enough. Her friends started disappearing. The Dios group chat she'd dominated went silent. A yoga instructor she'd known for years suddenly had scheduling conflicts whenever Cassandra tried to book a class. Her mother called me. Is it true? She asked, voice brittle. Did Cassandra try to steal from you? You should ask her, I said. I did. She won't talk to me, just cries and says you've ruined her life. I didn't ruin anything. I just documented what she was already doing. There was a long silence. I'm sorry, her mother said finally. I always thought you two would make it. So did I. She hung up. Cassandra's brother texted me. Don't loop me into this. I have kids. Then blocked my number. Cowardice always shows up when reputations start bleeding. 2 weeks after the hearing, I got a call from Douglas. You need to sit down for this, he said. I'm already sitting. Theodore Callister submitted his findings to the district attorney's office. They've opened an investigation. My stomach dropped. Investigation into what? Financial fraud, false declarations under oath, possible identity theft. She used your tax ID to open accounts. Will they actually charge her? Already did. 2 counts, attempted fraud and false declarations under oath. I sat there in silence, phone pressed to my ear, trying to process what that meant. Daniel, I'm here. What happens now? She'll need to surrender her passport, submit to financial audits, turn over her electronic devices. If convicted, she's looking at probation at minimum, possibly jail time, depending on the plea. I didn't want this. I know, but you didn't cause it. She did. After we hung up, I sat in my office for an hour, staring at nothing. I'd wanted to protect myself, wanted to stop her from taking what wasn't hers, but I hadn't wanted to destroy her, except maybe I had. Maybe some part of me, the part that had listened to her laugh about marrying me for money, had wanted exactly this. 3 weeks later, Cassandra showed up at the house. I almost didn't answer the door. But something, curiosity maybe, or a sense that this needed closure made me turn the handle. She looked terrible, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, no makeup, wearing jeans and a sweatshirt I'd never seen before. The designer armor was gone, replaced by something that looked almost human. Can I come in? She asked. I don't think that's a good idea. Please, 5 minutes. I stepped aside. She walked into the living room, our living room, though it hadn't felt like ours in a long time, and stood in the middle of it like she didn't know where to sit. Why did you do this? She asked finally. I didn't do anything. You filed for divorce. You demanded vault access. I just let you. You set a trap. I documented your behavior. There's a difference. You ruined my life. You were trying to ruin mine. She flinched. I was trying to get what was fair. Half of everything. That's what you're supposed to get. In a divorce. Not when you commit fraud to get it. I didn't. She stopped. Started again. Okay, maybe I made some mistakes. Maybe I shouldn't have done some of the things I did, but you didn't have to destroy me for it. I didn't destroy you. You destroyed yourself. I just refused to help you take me down with you. Tears welled in her eyes. Real ones, I think. Everyone's turned against me, my friends, my family. I can't go anywhere without people staring. I'm going to have a criminal record. I'm going to lose everything. You were willing to make me lose everything. That's different. How? Because she stopped. Couldn't finish the sentence because there was no good answer. You need to leave, I said. I went to the bank, she said suddenly. Asked to see the vault again. They let me. I waited. There was a folder at the bottom, labeled personal. Had our wedding photo in it. The one where I'm laughing. Okay. Why did you put that in there? Because it was true. That moment was true. Everything after it was a lie, but that moment was real. And the note, the one that said I wanted what was yours, also true. She wiped her eyes. I did love you in the beginning. I know. I loved you too. When did that change? For me, the day I found the keylogger. For you, I think it changed the moment you heard inheritance and started doing the math. She nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I know you won't believe me, but I am. I believe you're sorry you got caught. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, Cassandra. You taught me that. She turned and walked to the door. Hand on the knob, she paused. Did you ever think about just talking to me? Telling me the truth about everything? Maybe we could have worked it out. I tried. You installed spyware. Before that, you were already investigating, already convinced I was hiding something from you, already calculating what you thought you deserved. When exactly should I have tried talking to you? She didn't answer. Just opened the door and left. I watched through the window as she got into her car, the Audi I'd paid off 3 years ago, and drove away. That was the last time I saw her. The divorce was finalized 2 months later. The terms were exactly what Clause 14b specified. I kept the house, the lake property, the investment accounts, my father's trust, the holding companies, everything. Cassandra got the Audi and her personal possessions and debt. So much debt. The legal fees alone had bankrupted her. Preston had billed $85,000 before withdrawing from the case. Her new lawyer, a public defender working pro bono on the criminal charges, was doing his best, but the evidence was overwhelming. She ended up pleading guilty to 1 count of false declarations in exchange for probation and community service. No jail time, but a permanent record. Last I heard, she'd moved in with her sister 3 states away, deleted all her social media, started working as an administrative assistant somewhere, rebuilding from zero. Some mutual friends reached out to me afterward, some to apologize. We always knew something was off, they said, which was cowardly and probably untrue. Others to confess. She asked me to spy on you, one admitted, wanted me to find out where you kept important documents. I said no, obviously. People ask me if I feel guilty, if I regret how it all played out. The answer is complicated. I don't regret protecting myself, don't regret documenting her behavior or enforcing the prenup my father had the foresight to draft. But I do feel sad that it came to this. Sad that someone I once loved turned into someone I had to defend myself against. The wedding photo I put in that vault, I kept a copy. It's in a drawer in my office now. Sometimes I look at it and try to remember what it felt like in that moment, when her laugh was genuine, when I believed we'd make it. That version of her probably still exists somewhere, buried under layers of greed and fear and bad decisions, but I'll never see her again. The version I got was the one who married me for money and thought she was smart enough to get away with it. She wasn't. My father used to say, hope for the best, prepare for the worst, and document everything in between. I didn't understand what he meant until it was too late to ask him, but I understand now. The vault wasn't about hiding treasure. It was about preserving truth, because sometimes the most valuable thing you can protect isn't money, it's evidence. 6 months after the divorce finalized, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten, no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. You were right, about everything. I wanted what was yours and convinced myself I deserved it. I told myself you were hiding things from me, but really I was just hiding from myself. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I lost. And it wasn't the money. No signature. Didn't need one. I read it twice, then folded it carefully and put it in the drawer next to the wedding photo. Some stories don't have clean endings. No final revelations, no perfect closure. Just 2 people who loved each other once and then destroyed it through 1,000 small betrayals and 1 massive tactical error. She thought she was playing chess. I just built a better board. And when she finally opened that vault, she discovered the most terrifying truth of all. I'd been 3 moves ahead the entire time. She just didn't know it until the game was already over.